welcome to this pilot episode. It's about vinyl that I love. Behind myself, there are some of the records that I like most. Of course, I'm Italian. I'm not speaking my native language, so apologies and pardon for my bad English. I would like to talk about some 12-inch and some albums that I like without making a proper review or going so much in depth. But speaking about the qualities of this vinyl that I talk about in the sense of much more subjective value. So the first record I would like to talk about is going back to my roots. Of course, this is a cover of the famous song from La Mondosier, and it's by Linda Clifford. This specific cover. It's early 2000. I remember I was going to clubs in the early 2000, and this was hot plate for some kind of clubs. There were spinning records. About garage music. Linda Clifford is a star of the disco soul movement in the 70s, but is also a soul singer of the 60s. Incredibly famous in the 70s, also for some records that are not, in some cases, memorable, but very nice and very beautifully produced. This is, however, it's a 2002 rework, or rather than a remix of the La Mondosier hit, and it's an amazing track that has an incredible groove, a house groove, of course, which is a sort of crossover between a post-disco groove and a house groove. I love this kind of soulful, groovy house sung by, proper, strong and nice voices. It's a record that I still play in my DJ set, and it's a record that I still listen from time to time. This week I was listening about some kind of garage house music, and this is why this pilot episode is dealing with this genre. But of course, in this episode I aim to replicate some episodes that I have in the Italian channels, where I speak also about boogie, funk, soul, and jazz, and many other genres, including hip hop and sometimes even trap and techno. Because I'm very open in terms of music tastes, and I like almost everything, including metal and speed in some cases. But anyway, let's come back to this record. This is a 12-inch that contains 3 tracks, and I would recommend A1, of course, which is the one that has more merits, both in terms of groove and in terms of playability, but also the other 2 versions are very, very nice. It seems that this is 12-inch produced for an independent label. Of course, this is Linda Clifford that is far away from the 70s successes with a major label, and of course even more far from her work in the 60s. I would hotly recommend a listening of this 12-inch, and if you like it, it's not very expensive. You can have a good copy on Discogs, a good copy in the sense a near mint of VG++ copy on Discogs, and it's not incredibly expensive. I don't remember the price, but I saw it a couple of days ago, and it's still pretty affordable. So Linda Clifford, going back to my roots, 2022. And we have another record, more or well from the same era. We are talking about early 2000. I think this is a record from a singer that became quite famous later on in her career. I'm talking about Lucy Pearl, sorry for my bad pronunciation about that. The record is called Without You. Without You, it's a fantastic 12-inch, which is technically garage house with an amazing acoustic, or better, electric bass played almost live during the session. You remember me, Latin Lover from Stephanie Mills from Master at Work, which is another fantastic 12-inch with real drums and bass, but in a pure house house music spirit. And this is an amazing house records. I love it. It's not aged at all, despite the fact that it is a typical records with a 909 kick and an electric bass, making even sometimes just licks in the middle of chorus and verse. In some points, it's really crazy what the bass player does, and it's very interesting to listen to the beautiful voice, of this great singer. On top of this amazing house groove with such a funky bass, covering the whole, frequencies, which of course usually in house music is covered by either a synth or a virtual synth or any other instrument, but not necessarily an electric bass. It was something that was very popular in the 90s. There are a lot of, Masters at Works and other records which have electric bass, or in some cases even a proper double bass, acoustic double bass. And it's absolutely amazing how still in early 2000 a record like this can sound great with the same formula. I love this kind of house music. Some people call it garage. I call it simply soulful house. This is really soulful. Lucy Pearl, I think she became famous with Don't Mess It My Man, if I remember well the title. Apologies, most of the stuff is in my head, and at 54 years old, sometimes at 55, the brain starts working in reverse, but not with great success in most of the cases. Again, this is another record that you can find on Discogs. It's not very expensive. The average price, I think, is, I don't remember. It's not high. I would recommend to have a listen to this track. It's online. It's on YouTube, of course. I will provide all the links in the description. And I don't know. It's groovy house with a very soulful top, with soulful top vocals, and I personally recommend a listen for the people who don't know this 12, 7, almost 7 minutes of pure joy for people who might like Donna Allen and many other soulful house divas that can fill easily the shelves of our collection and being played and played and played over and over. And this is the case of this amazing Lucy Pearl, Without You. But of course, I cannot live without these records. That's 100% sure. So let's switch mood and genre. We have an amazing soulful boogie track from 1985. It's Skipworth and Turner, Thinking About Your Love, on a glorious label which is Fort and Broadway. This is a production from Patrick Adams, and you can feel the groove. I don't know if you already viewed or seen the Patrick Adams' intervention at Red Bull Academy, where he explained his orchestral training background, where he learned from working with an orchestra and writing for an orchestra. I think in a Broadway show, where he explained how he created the track, thanks also with his incredible background. And you can hear in this Thinking About Your Love how beautiful the texture of the arrangement is, the orchestration. It seems sometimes even to hear some counterpoint in between the synthesizers and the vocals that are going in separate direction but are still joining forces in order to create an amazing effect. This is an amazing 12-inch, which it's in the wrong cover though. I would recommend, in my copy of course, I would recommend you to listen the original US copy, which is the code is BWAY 414A, which I will include in the description. I'm mentioning this press because this plays very well. And I don't know about the other issues and the other editions of this 12. I know that the US press for Fourth and Broadway plays on a decent turntable. He plays amazing. He plays amazingly. I played this in clubs years and years ago. My copy is still near mint VG++, and every time the crowd had a very nice experience. This is an amazing 12-inch, 8 minutes and 4 seconds of intense groove, and this also proves that drum machines and electric instrument and 80s music is not only about commercial Italo disco, Italo dance. It's not only about commercial rock. It's not only about Cyndi Lauper. It's not only about the usual mythology of what the 80s is perceived to be by the mainstream audience. This is an amazing soul funk track that still in 85 sounds great, and is a super classic that most of us remember with passion and love, and I aim to promote this a lot in the next episode, because this is a record that new generation needs to know, and at least try to have a listen to, because it's how to understand the difference in between made by Bruno Mars and something like this. Simply the appreciation for the groove, the appreciation for the textures. Here, in my opinion, we have something much more complicated, both in terms of arrangement, both in terms of groove, and also in terms of songwriting, because we have a funky R&B song that goes beyond the funk and beyond the soul. There is a part in the bridge where this song is taking the maximum effect on the listener, lifting up your soul and getting you obsessed for listening more and more of this. So even the intro, the riff at the beginning is absolutely amazing. The sound of the piano, which is equalized on the mid-high, and it's very groovy. It's a rhythmic piano that goes around the whole tracks. It's typical of Patrick Adams' production, because he liked to use the piano in an orchestral way in order to create not only a nice sound, but also to create a rhythmic movement that is to a certain extent in counterpoint with the bass, the synthesizers, the vocals, etc. This is a record that you must have if you like funky boogie and funky R&B from the early 80s. And for the one who don't know these records, please go to YouTube everywhere you want, have a listen, and please comment and let me know if you liked it, and if you think it's worth to spend a few dollars for this amazing record. And talking about the magic 80s, we have an amazing record here, which is not a proto house record. I wouldn't call this that, because in 87 house was already there. I would call it breaky, dancey records, and it's Put the Needle on the Record by Mr. Arthur Baker. On this US copy, which code is CR12 014, sound is absolutely impeccable. This is a record that in some aspects might be sounding a bit dated, in the sense that there are some samples that are playing rhythmically by Baker or the keyboardist. I don't know, it's not mentioned in here, I think. That sounds like something that was cool maybe in the 80s and is not anymore cool in 2022, 2023, and onwards. But this record sounds amazing because of the intricate drum pattern and the bass. The grooving between the drums and the bass is toon 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 toon, which I think is copied blatantly from Magic Disco Machine, if I remember well, but please correct me if I'm wrong, which is a classic from Motown in 1975. It's I think if I remember correctly, Magic Disco Machine or something like that is a record made by professional musicians from the Motown organization in 75, and there is a track which is famous both in the hip hop world but also in the disco funk world, which is the one that has the basis is tune 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 tune, and exactly here we have the same pattern with a much more modern studio drums, but the results is amazing. The rhythmic results is amazing. Arthur Baker is also a very distinguished sound engineer, and he created a very beautiful sound. I think this is very playable today. Apart from these little parts with the samples that are, for me, a little bit dated, that I believe that they occur fortunately only at the end of the tracks, and at the beginning there is just a mixture of samples, including the riff, the hook of "Kiss" by Prince, that is sampled at various at various pitches, and it gives a very strange effects on this disco funk bass, because this is what it is, because it's taken from the 75 hit from the Motown records. And well, I would say this is good, interesting records. I would recommend this to everyone who wants to have who has an interest in a more modern approach to music, to the sonic texture of music, but also they want to listen to some good old grooves, disco funk grooves in a record made at the end of the 80s. When I listened to this at the end of the 80s, and I was of course listening to the radio, I was mesmerized by the sound, and I immediately bought the records. I recognize, and I accept the fact that at the end of the 80s this record sounded much cooler and much more interesting than it is now in 2022, especially after all the experimentation of breakbeat and breaks and funky breaks that occurred after the publication of this record, and also after all the discoveries that Record Collector made in the first 20 years of this new millennium. Some of them, of course, are much better than this one, but some of the records discovered recently are much better than this one, and I will talk about that in future episode. But this is a landmark for me. This is a very important record from Arthur Baker. I like Baker as a producer. I also like Baker as a DJ when he came, when he organized, I think in the first 10 years, in between 2005 or 2009 in London, a night at a very famous hotel here, and I went to listen to him DJing. It was very cool. He played a lot of nice funky electro and electro disco funk, a lot of records that we'll never know what they are, and I wish I could have the entire playlist. If you have it, please share it with me with links in the comments, and I would love to explore and purchase more records to add to my lovely record collection. But yeah, Put the Needle on the Records is an amazing record, and clap your hands and stomp your feet if you want to listen to this, and I'm sure that if you listen to this you will clamp your hands and stomp your feet if you like the groove, because this is a very groovy modern record. And now a bit of nostalgia, because of course I used to DJ since the late 80s till mid 2012 2013, around 2002 2003, if I remember well. Now I don't want to give you the wrong the wrong year. I was playing a lot of tracks from this compilation, Dope on Plastic 5. This is probably published before 2002 2003. I think this is probably, could be even the 90s. I don't remember. I haven't checked. I'm sorry, but I've been very negligent. But what I can tell you is that contains a lot of very nice breaky, funky tracks, electronic breaky, funky tracks. One of these, it's an amazing track by the 45 King. But you also have here the Freestylers. And you also have Capoeira Twins, Bass Bean Twins, and Cyclops 4000, which are all producers that I have followed and of whom I have bought a lot of music during the years. I think this is nice because in early 2000 I was part of a band called Two Tomato, and I was playing a lot of funky break, but with a very modern flair, because we didn't want to play pure disco, because that was something that I played before. We didn't want, me and my music band partner, we didn't want to play entirely techie house grooves, and this was the perfect compromise, because here there are tracks that are absolutely fantastic. There is this kind of electric break by digital drum machine, and then there is sometimes acoustic bass covered by a synthesizer, doubled by a synthesizer. There are incredible electronic grooves inspired also by house to a certain extent, but funk is always there, and it's interesting to see how modernity and classic times fuse together in something that sometimes it's beyond the genre. It gets beyond this kind of breaky genre and becomes really a powerful invention of music, surpassing all the genres. I like to listen to this sometimes, and I am planning to have to do a DJ set that I will put on my SoundCloud, using a few of the tracks of this double. No, it's not a double album. Is a 4-12 album. It's a 12-inch, and there are 2 songs per side. So from side A to side H, an amazing collection of good grooves. Of course, for most of you this might be dated music, but I think it's not that bad, and I would recommend to you to have a listen to this, because I think this is a still valid piece of electronic funky music, and some of you might be interested in including this in your DJ set or in your listening sessions at home. Dope on Plastic Volume 5. I cannot vouch for the other numbers of this collection, because I don't know about the 3, about the 2, about the 1, but of course in this next month I will do some further research, and if I find something incredible and interesting, I will for sure talk about the other numbers of this collection, because I like collections. I have, for example, here another collection of more house and electronic grooves, which is an American series of for DJs only, called Hot Tracks. This is the 11/6 volume. I will talk about this in the future. I don't want to talk about this today, because I wanted to focus on more on the groove on this pilot episode. But of course, when I will talk about 12-inch or album series about break and funk, not only this but many other series, I will for sure mention techno series, house series, hip house series, and many other, because I have collected them during the years. And of course, my main aim is to collect soul and funk. So this is not even the focus of my collection, but because I've been a DJ for many years, I always liked to play every type of electronic grooves I could purchase, and I'm still like that now, even though the focus, even if the focus has slightly changed, because most of my purchases are now on Discogs and on Beatport and Traxsource, etc., and Bandcamp. But naturally, this is all stuff purchased at a record shop at the time. It still sounds great, and yeah, why don't you give it a listen? All right, now a little bit of self-promotion. I'd like to introduce you to Super Paolo One. This is my album. It's available on vinyl in most of the shop in Europe, in the UK, but also I believe in the US. It's double album, which comprise 2 tracks, 2 songs per each side, for a total of 8 tracks, and it's a mixture in between new disco funk and funky breaks, and there are a couple of Balearic tracks. Now I don't want to define these genres and to talk about the history of Balearic, disco funk, etc. But I would love to go through these genres in the future, when I have the occasion to give more space to the development of the same. At the moment, I want to focus on this album. This album came out in December. It's going very well, and there is a limited edition of copies. There are the last copies available. I really would like to invite you to listen to this. I used a lot of musicians to produce this album in my home studio, where I have a lot of analog synthesizers, including Jupiter 8, to PPG, Prophet 5, and of course electronic old and classics like Honor Clavinet D6, or not instruments like a Wurlitzer piano, etc., etc. And I also liked I also placed a lot of modern virtual instruments and contemporary units into these tracks. I made a huge amount of use of my Minilog, the GRP synthesizers, and other new machines that I have with me, the Korg Voika. And I love absolutely putting sounds from different eras, from different machines together in order to see how the richness of the textures combine and what is the output. It's one of the I think the main theme of this album. Therefore, if you want to listen to some modern grooves, have a listen to Super Paolo One, which is a double album on vinyl only. There is no digital release for this. I don't believe there is going to be a full digital release of this unless I decide in the future to put some of the tracks on Bandcamp, but it won't be the whole album. And it sounds very good. I play this in club very often, both sometimes in the warm-up session, but there are also a couple of tracks that can be played during the main set if you play alternative music and your set is not the mainstream top 40 or hard house or hard techno, because this is Balearic and new disco, so it's much softer, but not less groovy than any other 80s or 90s piece of music that you might have heard. So this is a challenge. I invite you to listen to this and let me know in your comments what do you think about this. The music of this album can be heard at the beginning and at the end of this episode, because I made a short reel of tracks that you can listen to in order to promote it and of course make some money too. Last records for this review, it's from a band that I like, and I have a few other items from them. Is a brand new funk, and the track is called Jump Into Love. This is not expensive and it's not an incredible track, but it's a good funky boogie, and it has a couple of parts that are fully that are available for sampling, because they are almost played without any other instrumentation around. The 12-inch is not expensive, but if you find a near mint copy and the code is VID3A, it sounds very powerful. On my turntable, I had to put the volume. I had to lower the volume today because it was really high. This is a record from Platinum Records, published in 1978. So we are talking about boogie funk style. Of course, there is more boogie than funk, and it's the period where disco was declining and boogie and the R&B was coming back. We know that there are a lot of other much more important bands producing good boogie and good R&B in 1978, 79, and even before. For example, I love Mass Production, I love Slave, I love my ADC band on Cotillon, amazing groups. But this is an independent production by this small group, which is absolutely nice, and some parts are really good. I mean, I usually play part of this when I do some cosmic sets, because there is a kind of rhythm that I don't know if you know about Delhi as an international cosmic DJ, but it's very good when you do a cosmic warm-up. This record, it's absolutely a key element of it. Well, I thank you very much for listening to this short episode. Again, this is the first time I do a video in English. All my other videos are in Italian, so my apologies if I was not very efficient and I was that clear. But I'm very happy to answer to all your questions, and if you have any comments or suggestions, please add to the comments. Thank you very much, and see you next week.